So welcome everybody. Again, my name is Bob Stewart. We're going to talk today about creating a blog post for your listing. This is another of the classes in the Blogging Blueprint series we do, and this series is geared towards getting you writing posts that take advantage of everything in your blog in order to get you in front of the most people as possible, but also that once people find you, and I talked about this earlier, once people find you, that we're presenting the content in a fashion that gets them to take action. And obviously, we want to sell the house, but at the end of the day, most consumers are not going to buy the house that they, that one house they happen to see online. But what are some things that we might be able to do inside of our blog posts about our listings that could potentially drive them to our website to see other listings, or back to something where we can capture that person as a prospect for our business? If you want to talk to me later or as we're going through here, I'm at ActiveBob on Twitter. You can, ActiveRain, you could use a hashtag. We'll do question and answers at the end, so you'll be able to talk to me directly in this class as well. So this is the listing we're going to use, and I want Carrie right now to send you guys out this listing, and I'll actually show you what it looks like kind of live here. And so let's take a look at the listing live first, and then we'll come back and we'll break down kind of each section of this listing, and I'll try to impress upon you the importance of each particular section in here. So this is what we have for our listing, okay? And so today we're going to be talking about this particular waterfront condo for sale in West Seattle. All right, so we've got a listing. This is the one that we're going to review, and then again, we're going to go in here and kind of break down each section. So if you want to follow along on the slides, you can do that. If you'd like to use this URL right here, and Carrie will send that out to everybody. If you'd like to follow along from that place, that might be a little bit easier for you to see, you can do that as well. So let's get in here, and the first thing that we're going to talk about, and it's the first thing that we talk about really for all of our blog posts, and if you've taken some of our blogging boot camp classes, you know the importance of the title of your blog post. Okay, that becomes the thing that somebody would search for. It becomes that keyword phrase that where the search engine is looking at our piece of content and saying, what is this piece of content about? And in my case, I used waterfront condo for sale in West Seattle. Now let's go back, and if you've been with us for the boot camp classes, in the second class in that series where we focus on keyword phrases, one of the things that we talk about is there's two components to a keyword phrase. There's subject matter and there's geography. And in an order to kind of target the search engines a little bit more specifically, and to target that long tail where people are looking for more specific sorts of phrases, and in an effort to rank a little bit easier, right? Because condos for sale in Seattle, for instance, that's going to be something where who's on that page? The Zillows, the Trulias, the Realtor.coms, the Homes.coms, the Yahoo maybe, or Condos.coms, right? There's in every one of our markets, there's one or two agents that have gotten up on the page for those real, those real general sorts of terms. So we want our title to be something very specific, and in this case, we modified the subject matter a little bit, and we modified the geography a little bit, right? West Seattle would be a little bit more specific than just Seattle. And then waterfront condos for sale would be this specific kind of subject matter. Okay, so we've got a little bit more specific subject matter. We've got some qualifier in there, right? It's not just a condo for sale, it's a waterfront condo for sale. And then it's not just in Seattle, it's in West Seattle. Now, as we pick our title, once you guys, and every day people are posting listings on ActiveRain, and every day I see them missing opportunities to get in front of people, because here's the deal. If you just give your listing a title that kind of describes the listing in these flowery terms, and I see this all the time, like spacious, open floor plan, amazing views, right? Like, that describes it, but it doesn't really, it doesn't describe it in terms of how somebody would search, right? There's no geographic indicator in there. Words like spacious and these flowery descriptions, people don't use those words very often anyway in search, but something like waterfront condo, right? You can see somebody searching for that, somebody wanting something very specific. They don't just want condos in Seattle, they want one on the waterfront. Okay, so you want to think in terms of using a phrase someone might search for. So one of the common kind of mistakes, they do these flowery descriptions as their title. No good. Okay, and another thing I'll see people do is put the address. Here's the deal. If somebody knows the address of your property, they're going to find your property, right? And the reality is they're probably not going to find it on your site. They're going to find it on one of the big 4 or the big 5 websites that kind of get, the millions and millions of visitors a month. But they're going to find you. Okay, so we want to kind of use some kind of a descriptive phrase. Sometimes it might be based on a feature of the home, but we want to really describe the home in a fashion that somebody might search for it. So what I'd like you to do, you guys check in right now for me and just kind of give me some examples of maybe a listing that you have, and try to think like, how would I describe a listing that I have right now for a blog post that I might write about that listing. And maybe it's a listing you used to have, or a historic home in Western North Carolina. That's a good one, Teresa. Liberty Lofts, Roswell, Georgia. So John, I'm assuming that Liberty Lofts is like the name of a building or something. So you might even say something like, I don't know, I'm not 100%, but you might say something like, lofts for sale in Liberty Lofts, Roswell, Georgia, or a loft for sale in Liberty Lofts, Roswell, Georgia. A rancher with an in-ground pool in Joppa, Maryland. And that's a really good one. A rancher, we call them ranch, right? That's like a single story, I think. We also call them ramblers out here in Washington. So, yeah, that's a good one. Guard gated golf course home in Henderson, Nevada. John, yeah, that's a good. I would think about like getting too specific, right? Guard gated golf course. That's good. You might do something like, golf course home in a gated community in Henderson, Nevada. Yeah, so you guys, lakefront home on the north shore of Lake Oconee, that's a great one, right? Very descriptive, not outside of the bounds of how somebody could be searching. And so in that case, you've done lakefront home for sale, which you've modified the subject matter to make it very specific. And then you've done on the north shore of Lake Oconee. That's a great, you've really focused that listing onto what it is, right? And that's something that we could, it's not, that search term wouldn't be done 1,000,000 times a month by any means, but it might get done 3 or 4 or 5, right, for somebody that's looking for that actual property. And that's why we give it that descriptive title, right? Because we want to find not the person looking for our listing, right? Not the person that knows the address, or the person that drove by it and knows the MLS number because they picked the flyer up or something, right? We want the person that doesn't necessarily know our specific listing but wants a listing like ours. Terry says Oregon log home. Terry, you might get a little bit more specific, right? Log home is, log home for sale, so it might be something like, depending on what city you're in, if it was I'm just making a city name up here, like a, log home for sale in Seaside Heights, Oregon, right? Okay. So you guys gave a bunch of great ideas in there. Yeah, Vanessa says Ocean View home in beautiful Sunset Beach. Now, I would be careful, Vanessa, with adding those extra kind of flowery descriptions in there. It's an Ocean View home in Sunset Beach. Okay, so the first little piece, let's go big here again. The first little piece that I want to have in here, because I realize that the person who did that search, okay, they might not be interested in my specific property. And in fact, right below this kind of first piece that we have in here, which is this home search capability, we're giving them a real quick bullet of some of the listing details And one of the things that I heard a guy, this was a couple of years ago, I heard a guy say, and he was talking about in terms of Craigslist, in advertising on Craigslist and generating leads off of Craigslist and posting your listings onto Craigslist. And one of the things that he said that's really struck with me, and I think it's true, is he said people are looking, especially on Craigslist, they're looking for reasons to disqualify your listing. So when they get in there and you give them all this information up front, they're looking for reasons to disqualify, and we're going to give them that information kind of up front, right after we give them a chance to just kind of search for everything. But when we give them that information, if they land here at a waterfront condo for sale in Seattle, and right away they see that our particular condo is $685, that may have been a reason for them to disqualify our listing. Right? When they see it's 2,700 square foot, and they were downsizing and they wanted something a little bit smaller because that sounds like a lot of vacuuming. Right? We've given them reasons to disqualify, and so in conjunction with that, we want to give them reasons or give them an option or a pathway to find other things that might suit their needs related to how they found us. And if they found us because they were looking for waterfront condos for sale in West Seattle, right, we want to make sure that we give them a clear path. And so the very first thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to give this search current inventory of waterfront condos for sale in Seattle. And I actually have an error in here, okay? One of the things we talk about in our SEO class is somewhere in the body of your post, and it should be the first link that you provide in the body of the post, should be a link that uses anchor text matching your keyword phrase. And so in our case, my keyword phrase was waterfront condos for sale in West Seattle. I've got a little error in here. I should have my anchor text on this first link, right, where I say search current inventory of waterfront condos for sale in West Seattle. That's what mine should be. And then now my first anchor text link matches my keyword phrase. The reason we do that from an SEO perspective is because we want to tell the search engines, hey, if you send somebody to this post because you think this post is a good post for information about that query, we also are willing to send that person off somewhere else, right? And that happens to be our website. Let's go back and take a look at this listing. I just want to show you where I send them. Oh, so I've got it actually. I've fixed it here, just not on my slide. So waterfront condos for sale in West Seattle. If somebody was to click on that, where, and again, this comes from our calls to action class that we've done in boot camp, but where would I send them? I'm not going to send them to the home page of my website. I'm not going to send them to a search page where they can look at whatever they want, right? I'm going to send them to waterfront condos for sale in West Seattle. And in fact, there happen to be, excuse me, currently on the market, there happens to be 8 of these. So if they didn't want my property, they landed there, they saw the $685,000, they said, ooh, that's too expensive. And they wanted to just find other similar properties, and here's that property, right? But the other ones are in here, right? They wanted the 1,000 square foot place for under 500,000, right? It's there, and I give them that pathway, that really easy, clean path at the top of the post, that if they're disqualifying it based on something they see when I give them the details, okay, they've got a chance to go over and find the other stuff that's on the market right now. So very important. First thing, we're giving this chance to search for other stuff, right? I get that you want to sell this property, but the reality is you want to give them what they want. And if they're going to disqualify it really quick because we've got this next kind of section in here that gives them the details, okay, we want to have a path for them to get to the other stuff. Okay, so first part, home search, and then use keywords from your title for the anchor text. Next piece, these basic property details. I already talked about them a little bit, right? You want to give them the address, okay? You give them the price. Now, there's actually, if a price changes, right, when you start to market your property and you got it out there in all these places and then all of a sudden there's a price drop, right, you got to make sure you come back and update these things. One kind of strategy that it's a Craigslist thing, but I see a lot of agents doing, and I've heard is successful for agents, is they will actually omit the price. They'll say something like, call to get the current price on this property. Or they will they will say, click through to my website to find the current price for this property. So you could do that. I mean, I think in my case, I would probably leave it. But look, if you're really aggressive on a lead generation side and you really look at every listing as an opportunity to generate prospects and leads on the buyer side, right? There's a couple other little things we could maybe do in here. MLS number, bathrooms, bedrooms, square footage, right? Just kind of the basics. If this was a home, it might give lot size, or you don't want to get too much up there because again, people are looking for reasons to kind of disqualify these things, but we definitely want to give them the basics. Okay? The next piece, I'm just going to give them a little phone call to action, right? I want to make it real obvious that if they landed here and real quick, like this is something they're interested in, I want to make it real easy for them to pick the phone up and call me. Now, on an ActiveRain post, right, as we look at the live one again, like your contact information is over here on the side, but we don't want to make it hard for them, okay? If they're in here, they start to look in here and they see these things, and this is something that's starting to interest them, we want to make it real easy for them to jump in and have a chance to get a hold of us, right? For why? Well, to see if it's still available, to arrange a showing, right? Maybe you got something on there to learn about my, seller guaranteed program, to get a free, call me to get a free list of the foreclosures in this area, in addition to arranging a showing or seeing if this property is still available, right? But there's some kind of call to action in there for why they might want to pick the phone up and actually call you right now. Okay, the next little section, I want you to describe this property, right? And I want you to describe it in terms of what it would be like to live there. Now, this is where you get to add the flowery description, okay? And you're not going to, a lot of your guys' MLSs, you guys have like limits and restrictions on the number of characters, the number of words that you can use. In this particular setting, I do not want you to use any kind of shorthand, right? And there's two reasons for that. One is because as much as we like to think that people know what these things mean, and I've seen some really bad ones, and I know you guys have too, right? In your MLS, there's those agents that just, if you look at it, you got to like pull out your agent to public translator to figure out what this thing even means. Don't do it like that, because when a consumer's reading it, right, we don't want that stuff in there. And we don't have any limitations inside of our blog post for how many words we can take to describe this thing. The other reason not to do that is because we don't want the search engines looking at this thing. We want them to see clear sentences, good paragraphs, right? We want them to have those other kind of words in there where when people start getting really crazy, right? If somebody was looking for like this one has, it says the Italian tile floors and chiseled granite fireplace allow you to feel surrounded by elegance. Like if somebody was doing something real crazy, right? Like a search for, Italian tile floor, condos for sale with Italian tile floors. Like we want to have those other phrases kind of peppered throughout the blog post where we can pick up that the ridiculous long tail traffic, I guess you'd call it. And man, when I look at our analytics or just, there are some really crazy ways that people search for stuff. So we want to use full sentences, no shorthand, and we want to give a real good description of what it's like to live in this property or in this home. Okay, so the next piece is 2 photos. You know what? As I was looking at this, here's the thing with photos. Photos are a way that you can drive somebody back to your website where they'll want more information. So this is a similar strategy on like Craigslist. You'll see agents will have just the one photo of the house. You're always looking for kind of that balance between I want to give them enough information so that when they land on my post, they can get a good sense for what this place is about. But I always want to hold just enough back that there's a reason for them to go to my website. Okay? So if in my way of thinking about this, I would kind of give them 2 photos, right? I'd give them that main MLS photo that that's kind of the first one they always see when they're out there searching around, right? It's that picture from the front, usually. And then I'm going to give them a secondary photo that's going to be of the best feature in the home. Okay, so whatever I would think, man, somebody's gonna this is the thing that I'm gonna sell this house around, right? In this case, it's this amazing gourmet kitchen. Okay, and then right below those photos, I'm gonna give them the chance to find that listing on my website and get the additional pictures of it. So it could be that this listing is actually sold. And let's see. So we come in here and we say, okay, oh, it looks, yeah. So that listing's actually sold. So it's not this. This is actually a different listing. They both just happen to be at 685. But essentially, I would link back to this page right here, right? This would be the page that I link to, my property description page for this property, to where they can now come in here and start to look through the photos. Okay, so I might in this one have done like as my secondary photo instead of the front, I might have done the view, right? Just an amazing view. But I've got the one photo in here that's kind of the, right, this is the front picture, and then this is going to be that that feature that I'm really going to try to sell around. Okay, and look, okay, I understand that you guys aren't all selling waterfront condos, overlooking Puget Sound, right? Some of the listings that you come across, you work your butt off to figure out how to market this thing or to figure out how to make it look good, or but you got to find something, right? You got to, maybe it's the fact the kitchen opens to the living room and it creates a real family feel, and then you just that one good kind of interior photo, or maybe it's a view or something that allows you to have something to sell that property on. Now, what you're going to do then is your next paragraph, okay, you're going to describe that photo. So in our case, it was the picture of the gourmet kitchen. Okay, I'm going to describe that photo. I'm going to give another paragraph, and it's going to be kind of similar to that. What is it like to live in here? Paint the picture of what somebody could do with this kitchen, right? You could have dinner parties, and it'd be the best thing, and you get stainless steel appliances and lots of space for storage, and big fridges, and you want to paint that picture again, reinforcing what it would like to live in this house around that feature. This is the why, right? Why do they have to buy this house? Okay, so the next portion is I want you to describe the community or the area of the listing. Okay, and so in Seattle, Seattle's kind of weird. You've got, well, not weird. You have Seattle, and then we've got all these communities of Seattle. West Seattle, Wallingford, you got Green Lake, and then even within those, you've got specific areas of those. And so, like, this particular listing sits in Lincoln Park, which is an kind of a little neighborhood, I guess, or maybe even a subdivision. I wouldn't call it a subdivision, but a neighborhood of West Seattle, which is a community of Seattle. So I'm going to describe for them the area that they would be living in if they bought this condo. Okay, I've described the condo. I've described one of the really great features of the condo. Now I'm going to describe for them the area. Now, listen, I get that this is, most of you guys probably don't do this much for your listing, right? I mean, well, I shouldn't say that because I don't want to sell you guys short, but you take the listing, you put it into the MLS, and in terms of developing a story around the listing, that's where a lot of people stop. Okay, this allows us to really build a story around our listing, and what we end up with is a piece of content that tells somebody why they would want to live here beyond kind of the stats that we can put in the MLS, right? Because otherwise, you might as well just send them to this. Right, if you're out there and you're sharing it on Facebook, or you're showing the owner how they market it, how you're marketing the property, just send them to this page, right? It's got the half bass and the year built and all the kind of stale information. It's got the the limited amount of comments that you can put from the MLS, and these guys do a pretty good job, I guess. They don't have too much shorthand in here, but you can tell that they're just trying to yep, and they're using like and in here, and right, I mean, and they're limited in how how much of a story they can tell about this place. So we're in here. We're talking about the community. Well, what kinds of stuff? I don't know. Is there a homeowners association in this area? Is there parks nearby? Where can the kids play? Maybe where would people? What schools service this area? Is Starbucks nearby? How far is it to downtown? What kind of public transportation options are available? You're just giving somebody that idea, that real feeling. I want somebody to be able to read your post about your listing and absolutely walk away from that thing going, I know what it would like to be. I know what it would be like to live here. Your last little piece, you're going to give them another chance to find similar homes in the area. Okay, what do you think this is going to link to? A pretty good chance it's going to be a similar link to what we had up here, right? Where we're giving them a chance to find the waterfront condos for sale in West Seattle. And they're going to click through on this link. And again, I actually opened this one up a little bit. I made this condos in Seattle, maybe waterfront condos in Seattle is what this particular search is. So I didn't just limit it to West Seattle. I kind of gave them a little bit broader search. And I tried to demonstrate that by letting them know, hey, this is find similar homes in the area. So, I could have changed the anchor text on that to say find other waterfront condos for sale in the entire city of Seattle, something like that. Okay, but again, it's this exit. So they've come through, they've gotten the basic details, they've read a little bit about what it's like to live here. At any point in here, we could have got them off to our website to where they start poking around. And on our website, hopefully, as they start poking around, we've got some kind of call to action, some kind of lead capture capability inside of there. So you can see here, this is on these particular websites, the one I'm showing you an example from, this is a Market Leader site, that these things, they trip that call to action on the second listing that we look at. So this is the second listing. I looked at one earlier as I came in. Okay, that's it. There are a couple of things to just kind of reinforce here, and then we'll answer some questions. Your title is ultra important, and I was kind of poking around with this thing before. There's a bunch of different ways that somebody could find, like waterfront condo for sale in Lincoln Park, Seattle. And remember, I hadn't used Lincoln Park in my title, but I talked about Lincoln Park in West Seattle down here as I described the community. And so I actually show up, and I'm down here a little bit, but I show up for, waterfront condos for sale in West Seattle based on the fact that I've got this Lincoln Park content in the post. Now, this post shows up, like I wrote demo post on there. If I didn't have that at the start of my keyword phrase, right, I'd probably be in a little bit better position. I wrote this from the ActiveRain University blog, and I've never written anything else about Seattle or condos for sale, or so if my blog had some kind of a more consistent theme to it, you would expect to see me ranking a little bit higher. If I did something like Sam does here, and I had Google authorship set up for my blog on ActiveRain, and my picture was showing, right, there's the potential they could rank me a little bit higher, or at least as somebody scrolled down here, my photo would be there as kind of a, to draw their eyes in and let them know there's a real guy that wrote this piece of content, and that may get more clicks to it. I don't know if I'm happy or unhappy to report this post has not actually generated leads back to this website. I don't want it to necessarily because those would go unanswered. But some of the other blueprint posts that I've written like this have actually generated leads. The condo one and the subdivision one that I've written, even though both of them say demo post in them, have actually gotten real people to come back, land on my post, and click through to my website and become leads. I feel bad because nobody ever responded to that person, and they're probably using the site fine. But so title, very, very important, right? And then the other words we use in here become important too, because like I said, right, they can find this thing by doing other kinds of searches. It doesn't have to be just based on our keyword phrase. listing details. They want these things, right? They want to know what it's worth, or how much it costs. They want to know how big it is. They want to know the bedrooms. They want to know the address. You could even link this map, this maybe to a map like back on your website, right? Oh, I've gone too far here now. I'd have to clear my cache in order to get past that. But maybe your website has like maps on the listing page. You could link back to say, to see it on a map, click here, right? Tell the story. And the story really gets told by, what you write about the condo, the photos you show with that chance to get them to go back, right? And the story continues to be told by you telling it about that one great feature and about the area where they would expect to live. I think so. Yeah, find similar home. The last little thing that I always try to kind of reinforce to you guys is don't just post and pray. Don't just post this thing out there and then sit back and be like, man, I hope somebody finds this in the search engines, right? I would definitely be sharing your stuff on Google Plus. Okay, Google Plus to me isn't as much like a social network as it is a chance for us to manipulate the results of the people that we can connect to on Google Plus. So if you're connecting to folks on Google Plus, there's a chance. I had Carrie look at this one earlier, and she was logged in, and I'm logged in here too. So you can see that I plus one this, but when Carrie was looking at it, she saw that Bob had plus one this. So if you have a Google Plus strategy, send your stuff over there. Maybe you send it out on Twitter, and again on Twitter, I would be very specific. There's a great waterfront condo for sale in West Seattle, right? Boom, with a link back to our post. If you have lists on Facebook, you might share it with your list. I wouldn't say be sharing, if you don't get a ton of listings, you might share each one of your listings once on Facebook. But if you have lists where you've got past or potential clients in a list on Facebook, you could consider sharing that listing with a list. Maybe you've got some of your friends that live in a certain area. You've got your friends in West Seattle. You might consider sharing that with that list on Facebook. Facebook lists can be very powerful if you take the time to set them up, because now you can pick and choose who you want to share certain pieces of content with. If you have a Facebook fan page or a business page, I guess they call them now, based around a community. So if I had one set up for West Seattle, this would definitely be a piece of content that I would share on that West Seattle page. Go to facebook.com/ActiveRain. If you have a very specific sort of a question, leave it on our Facebook page, and I'll spend some time throughout the day going in and answering those questions. Okay, awesome. You guys, thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it. I wasn't planning on spending this much time here, but I get going. I can't stop talking. I got a big mouth. Appreciate you guys joining me. On behalf of Michelle, Carey, behind the scenes, you guys have an awesome finish to your week. Great weekend. We'll see you again real soon at ActiveRain University. Bye-bye, everybody.